Okay, so we're going to add in some text, and we're also going to add in some animated text into our Premiere Pro session. So I've got a clip here. I'm just going to drag and drop it in. And what I want to do is to get a freeze frame and to add in my titles over that freeze frame. So I've got the frame I quite like here. And then all I need to do is to export this frame out. So I go to my little button here, it says export. And what I'm going to do is click into here, make sure I name it correctly. So I'm just going to call it here, rename it. Then what I also want to do is make sure I've got my PNG or JPEG selected. And also I know where I'm saving it to. And then also then I click import after, because we want to import into the project this frame. So I'm going to click OK, and sure enough, here it is. Now, what I need to do is to put it into this clip, and I need to make room. So I'm going to go to my razor tool, and what I'm going to do is zoom in a bit and cut. Then I'm going to make room for this JPEG. So drag this across and drop in my JPEG. Or my PNG, sorry. And there we have, and because this was an exported frame, it will match up exactly. And that will hold, and then carry on playing seamlessly. So now what I want to do is add in some text. I'm just going to close this window, go to my T for type tool, click on there, and then it's very easy. I'm simply going to type in my text, and I'm going to type it onto the screen. Notice we've got a little clip, the graphics has been shown, and I'll type in my title, The Axeman Cometh. And we can see now above my JPEG, we've got my clip, and that's got the text on it, and I can move it about as I wish. Now, if I want to alter any settings in there, well, that's very easy to do. I just go in here and double click on my clip, and that will bring up the properties window. And there I can alter pretty much anything I need. I'm going to highlight it all. I'm going to then justify it so the text is in the center. I can go in and also change my font, find a particular font I like. Let's go see what we've got. No, not that one. Okay, we'll go here and we'll take that one. As I scroll down, we can also change the color of the text, and we can also put a stroke on it if we want, and we can change the color of the stroke. I'm going to double click into my little white there, and I'm going to change it to red. And we can see there what it would look like with a stroke. And obviously I can change the size as well of the stroke. Probably make it a bit more reasonable. And now I'm just going to position it so we've got it in the center. Quite like it there. If I move, scroll down here, I can also align it, align it horizontal and vertical center. So I know it is now in the center of my screen. So there we have our text. But as we can see, it just comes in, is there, and then it goes out. What we want to do is we want to animate this text. We want to make it do something. So how do we do that? Well, we go to our effects control panel. And if you can't see that, you go to your window and there's effects control. But here's mine. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the scale. And at the minute it says 100. Now I can drag this up, or I can drag this down, and we can see it makes the image, the text, bigger and smaller. I also want to animate this over time. So I'm going to click on my little stopwatch sign here. And, oh, sorry, that's something to do with the Macs. What that does is it gives me a keyframe, and that keyframe stores information, and I can now change the size. And that keyframe stores that change of size. So I move along my timeline, put another keyframe in, change the size again, and bring it back to about 100. And now we can see that it actually will happen over time. What I want to do is move further along my timeline, put another keyframe in, and that will hold that size. And then at the very end, I'm going to make this much, much bigger. So we can really, really zoom in, and we can keep zooming in as we go in. Now, obviously, the slight center is not exactly where I'd want it to be. So I might have to reposition it ever so slightly. Let's see as we go further in. So I might just have to reposition that text and move it maybe a little bit to the right. So I go to my position, put in a keyframe that will store that position there. Let's move it along, and I might have to move this then a little bit to the right to try and get that sort of gap to get into. Let's see how that works now as I zoom further in. Further and further in. Might need to move it again. Now, if I had more time, I'd be spending more time on this to try and make it as smooth as possible. So we click back here and let's zoom even further in. Just gonna have to type now. Mouse wouldn't go actually that far across. So we'll just keep typing in and let's see how far we need to go. And yep, let's see how we're looking now. So we're still a little bit out. We're closer. What happens now if we zoom in at the end? And let's go back and change that position. And just move it across a little bit. There we go. Now this might look a bit shaky because I had to do it in parts. And obviously if we had more time, we'd get it positioned exactly. But there we can see how we can animate over time. Might try and maybe reposition, make it much simpler. Actually, that might make it smoother. And there we go. So that's how we can animate our text over time using keyframes on our timeline. And we can move these keyframes along if we want to try and get the position or to make it look a bit smoother. And actually that looks okay. So that's how we can then bring in our text using our effects control, put in keyframes, and we can see then within those keyframes we can make the text bigger, smaller, and do as we want. Now we can also now go in and add in what we call lower thirds. I want to add in starring Axeman. And we're going to put that in our lower thirds bottom of the screen. And that's what we call it, lower thirds. So I'm going to take another freeze frame, and this time I'm going to call it starring, and again, PNG, know where I'm saving to, and make sure import after bounce, import after export is done. There it is. So I've got it there. What I need to do now is make room for it. So I zoom in, click in there, put the cut, zoom out so I've got room to move. And now move that clip there, and now I can drag in my starring clip. So there we can see, and again, it's all a nice smooth transition because it is indeed a freeze frame of that clip anyway. So now I can click onto there, and I can now go to my type tool. I'm going to put it on my lower thirds, as I said, in this portion of the screen. That's what we call lower thirds. Our subtitles would go in there, but also our starring elements as well. So click on the screen with my type tool. I'm going to type starring. There we go. Now what I also want to do is go back onto there, and I want to type in the X-Men. I'll type in X-Man, and as I type, we can see, once I hit return, I've now actually got a separate clip. So I've got starring and Axeman. And even though they're appearing on the screen together, they're two separate clips. And that means I can then animate these separately. But let's change the font, I think, on here. Not a massive fan of this font. Also, might need to change the size. Let's get a different font. It's going to make it look a bit more reasonable. Let's say, yep, I think that'll do. Let's reduce the size a little bit. because obviously we want the name of the actor to be much, much more prominent. So go to Axeman. I might change the font for this particular because we had the title sequence using that font. So I might just grab another font and we'll just take this one. And there we go. So I'll just go with that. And everything else looks okay. But obviously what I want to do is start bringing these title sequence, the starring sequence in. So what I'm going to do is start with the text off screen. So I go to my effects control and clicked on the starring clip. I go to position, click on my stopwatch, and I'm going to move it right off the screen. So that's where it's going to start. Move along my timeline. Then I'm going to add in another keyframe. And now I'm going to change the position to bring it in. And we can see that that now will come in from the left. I'm going to go to Axeman. And now I want my Axeman position to be here at the end. So actually, where it is, I'm just going to put a keyframe. And actually going to go back to the start. And because I'm clicked on my Axeman, I know I'm acting on that, not the starring. Put in another keyframe and have it all the way off screen. And now you can see as we play along, starring comes Axeman. They're both coming in at the same time. So I think I might want to change that. I think I'd rather have starring coming in and then Axeman coming in. So I might change that. So let's go into my Axeman and I might hold that. That's where the starring finishes. So let's have the Axeman starting to come in there. And as I play, now starring and then Axeman. In it comes. So that's how I can bring the two in separately. And then what I'd like is after that comes in, holds for a little bit, I want to zoom it off to the right hand side. So I get towards the end and what I'm going to do is put a little keyframe in there and just move it all the way to the right. So that first clip will hold it. Next clip, move it off. And then go back to my starring. I want to do pretty much the same thing. Let's note, so there's my keyframe that holds the position. So I'm now going to do that on starring and then move it to the end, put in another keyframe and move it all the way over to the right. And that should then bring everything, let's bring it a bit further over. I haven't quite got it off the screen. There we go. And let's play, and in it comes, starring Axeman, they hold, and then off they go to the right. And that's how we can bring our text and animation into our Premiere Pro session.